So we're going to start out, like I mentioned, with a show that I think doesn't get enough love. And I think that's kind of funny. Maybe I should rephrase that. A show that doesn't get enough love from people who are probably listening to this podcast, because it's a show that doesn't have anything to do with superheroes. It's really hardly any action in the traditional sense. But it's a show, and it's also a show that's not on one of the quote-unquote big major streaming platforms. I mean, we could consider Apple TV Plus one of the up-and-comers, but it's not on Netflix or Disney Plus or Max or anything like that. But Ted Lasso is, quite frankly, one of my favorite shows I've ever seen. Now, if you've seen the most recent season of Ted Lasso, I was not, I wasn't as over the moon about Ted Lasso season 3 as I was about seasons 1 and 2. But, I mean, that's such a high bar to clear. I remember, I think about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I first started to watch Ted Lasso and caught up just in time when season 3 was starting. And I was just so pleasantly surprised with a show that is not a traditional sitcom. Like, there is a more straightforward story going on there. Although with season 3, I think it started to get a little bit distracted here and there with subplots and things of that nature. But, for the most part, it is a very traditional kind of show. But as someone who's not a big soccer fan, I'm more of a baseball fan myself. But as someone who isn't a big soccer fan, I was just so surprised at how I was able to connect and resonate with this story that was going on about a sport that I, thought I would find, a little not hard to understand, but just hard to connect with on that level. And then characters that I didn't even know. And by the end of it, Roy Kent, Ted Lasso, obviously, Rebecca, even Nate's redemption arc, I just, Akili, I love the characters in this show. And I think that it's such a wonderful reminder to just be kind and to do the right thing. It's a show that it plays on cliches, obviously. Ted Lasso is just this kind of classic Midwestern guy who just loves, what he does. He loves life, but he goes through things. He went through a lot of mental health struggles, I think, in season 3. Obviously went through a divorce, and, it's a lot for him, but it's a reminder of what good people can do. So anyways, all that to say, this is sort of my pitch to you guys. If you are mostly watching shows like Peacemaker and WandaVision and whatnot, take a chance on this show. If you have that free trial on Apple TV Plus or whatever, would really, encourage you guys to take a chance on this show. Anyways, for those of you who are fans of Ted Lasso, not to, majorly spoil the ending of season 3, but Jason Sudeikis, who plays Ted Lasso and is one of the writers and executive producers of the show, has always maintained that it was going to be a 3-season arc for Ted Lasso. And you saw that progressing, right? There's a very natural way in which each season encapsulates one of those 3 sort of pillars of this story, right? Without going into too much detail for those of you who haven't seen it yet. And so obviously with the end of season 3, we saw at least part of Ted Lasso's story come to a somewhat natural conclusion, right? The ending seemed very explicit in how it was doing that. However, a lot of us, myself included, if somebody were to approach us and say, hey, would you be interested in a Ted Lasso season 4? AKA, would you just be interested in spending, 8 more hours of on-screen time with these characters? Without hesitation, I would say yes, because at this point, I know that the story came to a very nice conclusion in season 3 and whatnot, but it's just about spending more time with these characters in a way that's endearing and heartwarming. And as long as Jason Sudeikis has the creative energy and the creative drive to do so, I would just love to do that. I love to see that. And so it was kind of up in the air, right? And we finally now got confirmation about a year maybe after season 3 that season 4 looks like it is more likely. Not going to say confirmed, this segment is not Ted Lasso season 4 confirmed, but it is more likely than it ever has been before. And the reason I say that is because the options on the contract for 3 actors in the show, 3 prominent actors in the show, that being, those being Hannah Waddington, who plays Rebecca, who is, one of the critical figures in the show, obviously. Brett Goldstein, who plays Roy Kent, and also for those of you, MCU fans, he was Hercules in 5 seconds of Thor: Love and Thunder. And Jeremy Swift, who plays Higgins, who is Rebecca's assistant. Those 3 actors have been basically their options on their contracts have been picked up, and they are returning, or at least if they are going to do a season 4, they are basically on the books to do it, which is exciting because it appears that, this show kind of lives and dies by Jason Sudeikis. It's not one of those shows where, oh, we can move on without the star. The show is called Ted Lasso. It was based on those, I think, NBC skits that were done by Jason Sudeikis a while ago, where he was playing this character of Ted Lasso and, kind of pretending to be goofy and whatnot and all that kind of stuff. And so, it's really his show. And the fact that the studio is even willing to think about, picking up these options and saying, let's go for a season 4, it's going to happen, I think is actually a really good sign. Because what's key in this announcement is that Jason Sudeikis himself is not, returning yet. And other actors like, Brendan Hunt, for example, their options or their contracts have not been re-signed, because I believe that some of these actors have contracts in which you can have options that are picked up, and some, like Jason Sudeikis, don't. And so, again, not a guarantee that Ted Lasso season 4 is coming, but honestly, if you can make a Toy Story 4 after an ending such as Toy Story 3, you can make a Ted Lasso season 4, and you can make it well. What the story will be, I'm not sure. It's not as clear as it was after the end of, season 1. You go, okay, this is what the story of season 2 is going to be. At the end of season 2, you go, we got it. We know what season 3 is going to be about. Season 4, who knows? But again, at the end of the day, just spending any more time with these characters, I would just be so delighted and so overjoyed to see Ted Lasso back on my TV screen one more time. So let me know in the comments down below. First of all, have you checked out Ted Lasso at all? And if you have, let me know what you think about the show. I love it. It's just one of my favorites. And are you excited about a potential season 4, or should they have ended it at season 3 if they're going to keep going? Let me know in the comments down below.